So today we're going to annotate this text, getting ready for the STAR test and just any standardized test, SAT, ACT, AP test. Now on the STAR test you can use a highlighter if you want to, and that's fine if you like using highlighters. On AP test, SAT, ACT, you're only going to have a pencil. So you want to figure out how to do it with just a pencil between now and when you actually take these tests. Okay, so first I'm going to look at our title. Syrian Refugees, Story Mimics Struggles by Anne Frank's Family 75 years ago. Syria, hopefully you can recognize that as a place. If you don't know a lot about what's happening in Syria, that's okay. The article's probably going to fill us in, but it is a place in the world. Mimics is another word that we may have to look up, and mimics basically means copies. And don't forget that when you're looking words up, the thesaurus sometimes helps you more than the definition. So don't be afraid to use both the dictionary and the thesaurus, or if you have a combo book, you can use the combo. So Syrian Refugee Story Mimics Struggles by Anne Frank's Family 75 years ago. Now Anne Frank we know about, we know who she is, and it's telling us that it was 75 years ago. We also know that this was written by the Washington Post, and it was in 2015, so that gives us some information. The picture is, we're going to look at this as a text feature. A picture of Anne Frank is pasted in a book at the exhibition of Anne Frank, A History for Today, at the Westbrook Remembrance Center in the Netherlands, and this picture was from 2009. Okay, so now we're ready to start reading the text, and this is just our first read, and we're going to mark things that just pop out to us. President Barack Obama has pledged to take 10,000 Syrian refugees who are fleeing war in their homeland. There was another group of refugees, Jews trying to escape Europe on the eve of World War II, who also sought to come to the United States. Many have noted the similar obstacles that the two groups, more than 75 years apart, have faced. Okay, so the information that we got that wasn't already in the title is that this was under President Obama, and we're talking about 10,000 Syrian refugees. Refugees might be a word you need to look up, and that is fleeing your country. Remember, the dictionary is our friend. The dictionary, when we're reading, is the key to understanding a text, because if we can understand the vocabulary in it, we can work out what the meaning is. Okay, so we have 75 years apart, we have 10,000 Syrian refugees who are fleeing a war in their homeland. So Syria is these people's homeland. Among the many who tried and failed to escape German persecution were Otto Frank and his family. His wife was Edith, and his daughters were named Margaret and Anne, who was the author of The Diary of Anne Frank. In 2007, American University history professor Richard Brightman wrote about the discovery of old documents. They told the story of the Franks' struggle to get permission to come to the United States. Okay, so here is our connection, is that the Franks tried to come to the U.S. which is the same thing that a lot of Syrian refugees are trying to do. Okay, and this was during World War II. Otto Frank survived the Holocaust, the mass killing and imprisonment of European Jews during World War II by German Nazis. Brightman said that if immigration rules had been different, Anne Frank could be a 77-year-old woman living in Boston today, a writer. Instead, she died at the age of 15 in a German concentration camp. Okay, so our tone is kind of accusatory, okay, that this paragraph gives us our tone, and they're kind of accusing the U.S. for not letting her in. For not letting Franks in. Okay, if the immigration rules had been different. Okay, so now we're kind of starting to get the point of view of the author, that we're saying maybe during World War II we should have let some of the people seeking asylum as refugees in. All right, so now we have another header, and this is another text feature, so we always want to pay attention. Policies carried a high cost for refugees. The United States immigration policies did not allow the Franks to enter. So the policies did not allow them to enter. These rules were designed to protect the country and guard against a flood of foreigners during the war, Brightman wrote. Some say that the Syrians are being kept out for the same reason. Okay, and it says some say, so we don't know who. I wonder who is saying that. Some Americans are worried that members of Islamic State, a violent group, so the Islamic State, a violent group that's taken over parts of Syria and Iraq, could hide among the refugees. So the policies are for safety. In 1940, Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands. In 1941, Otto Frank, who had moved with his family from Germany to the Netherlands, applied for U.S. visas. So the Franks fleeing Nazi Germany moved to the Netherlands, but that wasn't far enough because the Nazis crept in and were conquering the Netherlands. So they applied for U.S. visas. And again, visas are something you may want to look up, and that's permission to be in a country that you don't have citizenship in. The complicated and ultimately doomed process was described in nearly 80 pages of documents found by the YIVO, Institute for Jewish Research. The story seems to unfold in slow motion, the New York Times wrote after looking at the YIVO documents. The papers describe the painstaking exchange of letters back and forth from Europe to the U.S. and from state to state. Each page adds a layer of sorrow as the torturous process for gaining entry to the U.S. is laid out, the paper wrote. The moment the Franks and their American supporters overcame one obstacle, another arose. Okay, so torturous, that's a pretty strong word, process for gaining entry into the United States. So it was a process, there were many obstacles. Okay, so I'm going to stop there with annotating, but this, when I look at your text, I want to see your thinking on the paper. I want to see questions that pop into your mind. I want to see terms that are defined that you need to find. You can, if you want, you can put definitions, but what I see a lot of times is just this and 2 or 3 words, and this and 2 or 3 words. And that's how we annotate when we just want to summarize. But I want you to go farther and put your thinking. So I am looking for thinking, which is not always going to be pretty, not just summaries. Summaries are okay, but what else can you do as you're thinking about the text as you were reading that? Okay, so that is the process that I want you to use for annotating the text as we are taking a test.